The gleaming halls of the Galactic Military Academy bustled with activity as students from 100 worlds hurried to their training sessions. The Academy had always welcomed diversity, believing that strength came from the unique abilities each species brought to the defense of the galaxy. But the arrival of humans had caused quite a stir. Administrator Blix, a tall blue-skinned being with 4 eyes positioned around his elongated head, carefully examined the files of the new cadets. His inner eyelids blinked rapidly, a sign of his concern. "Most unusual," he muttered to his assistant. "Their planet has gravity 1.5 times our standard. Atmospheric toxins that would kill most sentients. Temperature variations that swing wildly. Constant natural disasters. And yet they thrive there." He paused on a medical scan. "Look at this skeletal density. Their muscles developed under that crushing gravity. And their cardiovascular system. It's remarkably efficient." His assistant, a methane breather wrapped in protective gear, made a bubbling sound that translated as laughter. "You sound worried, Administrator." "Not worried. Cautious. Deathworlders think differently. They've evolved expecting danger at every turn." The Academy had accepted only 3 humans in this first experimental class. They were housed together in specially reinforced quarters that could withstand their stronger movements and adjusted to Earth normal conditions. Cadet Kim stood at attention in basic combat theory, her posture perfect, but her eyes constantly scanning the room. A habit her instructors had noted as typical of humans, this constant awareness of surroundings. At 22 Earth years, she was the youngest tactical specialist ever admitted. Her simulated battle outcomes had confused the Academy's computers, which initially flagged her solutions as errors before recognizing their effectiveness. Cadet Kim called out Instructor Vril, his antennae twitching. "Please explain your solution to Scenario 12. Kim stepped forward, her movements fluid and controlled. "Sir, the traditional approach places defensive arrays here and here." She pointed to the holographic display. "But this creates a predictable pattern that an adversary will recognize from standard military education." Several alien cadets shifted uncomfortably. Kim continued, "I repositioned our forces to appear vulnerable in the southeast quadrant, inviting attack there while concealing our actual strength in these underground positions." "Sacrificing the outpost?" questioned Vril. "No, sir. Saving it and capturing enemy forces with minimal casualties on either side." Across the Academy in Advanced Engineering, Cadet Park worked with tools almost too small for his hands. At 25, he had already developed 3 patented technologies on Earth. Now he was adapting a standard communication device, his fingers surprisingly nimble for their size. "This shouldn't work," said his lab partner, a silicon-based life form whose body resembled crystalline structures. "You've bypassed 3 safety protocols." Park smiled. "Sometimes you need to break rules to make something better. Look, now it works in radiation fields that would normally disable it." His instructor hovered nearby, compound eyes widening. "Cadet Park, that's unorthodox but brilliant. How did you conceive this approach?" "On Earth, we had to make do with what we had during the resource wars. Improvise or die, my grandfather used to say." Meanwhile, in the Xenolinguistics Center, Cadet Lee sat surrounded by holographic language patterns. At 23, Lee was quiet but observant. While other students struggled with a single alien language, Lee had already mastered a dozen, detecting patterns others missed. "Your pronunciation of the Phyrexian death clicks is perfect," marveled Professor Klo, a being with vocal structures specifically evolved for complex sounds. "How did you master it so quickly?" Lee looked up from his studies. "The patterns remind me of ancient Korean tonal shifts. My mind just connects the similarities." The 3 humans had quickly become both a curiosity and a source of mild concern. They ate together, trained together, and seemed always to communicate on levels others couldn't quite grasp. Then came the day that changed everything at the Academy. The emergency alert cut through all regular communications. Classes halted as information streamed in. The peaceful agricultural world of Luma Colony was under attack by separatist forces who had appeared without warning 3 days ago. Reports showed mounting casualties as planetary defenses struggled against the unexpected tactics of the attackers. In the Great Hall, Academy leadership gathered with senior cadets for a briefing. Tactical displays showed the spreading conflict. The separatists appear to be using hit-and-run tactics, explained Central Command's holographic representative. They strike quickly, then withdraw before our forces can properly engage. The 3 human cadets sat together at the back of the room. They exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. "They're confused," whispered Park. "They don't see the pattern," agreed Kim. Lee nodded. "It's textbook Earth tactics." As the briefing continued, Kim's hand slowly raised. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to the human cadet. Even now, many found the sight of humans slightly disturbing. Their solid forms, their confident movements, their direct gaze. "Sir," Kim said to the Academy commander, her voice clear but respectful. "These attack patterns aren't random or chaotic as the analysis suggests." The commander raised an eyebrow. "You have insight, cadet." Kim stood, her posture straight. "Sir, these are precisely the guerrilla warfare tactics used during Earth's pre-unification wars. The separatists are drawing from our historical military doctrine." A murmur ran through the room. The commander gestured her forward. "Explain." "The separatists strike from different directions each time, but always at supply lines before targeting communications. They create confusion, then exploit it. They're using terrain features for concealment exactly as Earth forces did in mountain warfare centuries ago." The commander studied the displays with new understanding. "And you recognize this immediately?" "Yes, sir. Any human with military training would. These patterns are part of our basic historical education." The 3 humans stood together now, united in their understanding of a conflict that had baffled the galaxy's finest strategic minds. "We might be able to help," said Kim quietly, "if you'll let us." The Academy ship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Luma system. Through the viewports, cadets could see the flashes of weapons fire in the distance. What had been a peaceful agricultural colony was now a battleground. Cadet Kim watched the tactical display with growing concern. Red dots marked separatist positions while blue showed alliance forces. The pattern was clear to her eyes. The separatists were running circles around the alliance ships. "Attention all personnel," came the announcement. "We will dock with Command Vessel Intrepid in 10 minutes. Senior cadets will report to auxiliary tactical operations." The 3 human cadets gathered their gear. They had been training for combat situations, but none expected to face a real conflict during their education. As they walked through the corridor, other alien cadets gave them curious looks. "They're hoping we have some Deathworlder magic to fix this," Park said quietly. Lee adjusted his uniform. "It's not magic. It's just perspective." The Intrepid was enormous compared to the Academy vessel. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Officers rushed through corridors, and the sound of urgent communications filled the air. The humans were directed to the main tactical center, where senior commanders assessed the ongoing battle. Commander Vextal dominated the room. His species stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 powerful arms and skin that shifted colors with his emotions. Currently, it displayed an angry red-purple as he glared at the tactical display. 3 days. He roared, slamming his 4 appendages on the console. 3 days of fighting with no progress. The display showed the latest casualty figures. 2 Alliance cruisers severely damaged. 1 supply station destroyed. Over 300 personnel dead or wounded. The Separatists, meanwhile, continued to strike and fade away before concentrated force could be brought against them. "They're like ghosts," complained a reptilian officer. "We position our forces according to predictive algorithms, but they never appear where expected." "Because they're not following standard military doctrine," Kim whispered to her fellow humans. The Academy commandant, who had traveled with the cadets, noticed them huddled in the back of the room. Unlike many, he had studied Earth history during his preparation to receive the first human cadets. He moved toward them. "You have thoughts, cadets?" he asked quietly. Kim straightened. "Sir, with respect, we recognize these tactics. They're using Earth playbooks from centuries ago." The commandant's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "Briefly. Mountain warfare tactics, sir," Kim said. "Hide in difficult terrain. Strike supply lines. Create confusion with multiple small attacks rather than one large battle. Wear down the enemy's will to fight rather than destroying their capacity. And you believe you understand what our senior commanders do not." Park spoke up. "Sir, it's not about intelligence or skill. It's familiarity. These tactics were developed on Earth because of our world's geography and our historical limitations. Most galactic species evolved in more stable environments and developed more straightforward military approaches." The commandant considered this. "Come with me." He led them toward Commander Vextal, who was now berating his officers for another failed intercept attempt. The commander's skin rippled with irritation as he noticed the humans approaching. "Commandant, this is hardly the time for a cadet field trip," he said. "Commander, these cadets believe they recognize the tactical doctrine being employed by the separatists. I suggest we hear them out." Vextal's upper arms crossed while his lower ones rested on his weapon belt. "We have the finest tactical minds in 3 sectors working on this problem. What could students possibly contribute?" The 3 humans exchanged glances. Around them, other alien officers watched with a mixture of curiosity and dismissal. "Sir," Kim said, stepping forward, "the separatists are using guerrilla warfare tactics developed on Earth. They're deliberately avoiding direct confrontation while targeting weaknesses in your supply and communication networks." Vextal's skin shifted to a deeper purple. "And how would they know Earth tactics? We've only just allowed humans into the academy." Lee spoke up. "Information travels, Commander. Earth's military history is available in public archives. Someone studied it and recognized its value against conventional alliance approaches." The commander made a dismissive gesture. "Speculation." "Sir," Park said, "they're communication relays. I could disrupt them with standard equipment if reconfigured properly. They're using a frequency jumping pattern identical to Earth's old resistance networks. And their command structure has cultural weaknesses," Lee added. "I've analyzed their communications. Their leadership includes 3 different species with historical tensions. Their unity is fragile under pressure." The tactical center had grown quiet as officers listened to the exchange. Commander Vextal's skin now showed patches of uncertain yellow among the purple. "Commandant," Vextal said, "control your cadets. This is not a classroom exercise." The commandant remained calm. "Commander, what if they're right? 3 days of conventional approaches have failed. Perhaps unconventional knowledge is required." "This is absurd," Vextal began, but was interrupted by a priority alert. Another Alliance vessel had taken heavy damage. In the momentary silence that followed, the Academy Commandant spoke. "Give them 15 minutes to present their analysis formally. What do we have to lose?" Commander Vextal looked at the casualty reports, then at the 3 humans. His skin slowly shifted to a more neutral blue. 15 minutes, he said finally. Not 1 second more. The tactical center was quickly reorganized. The 3 humans were given access to the main display system. Officers gathered, many wearing expressions of skepticism, others showing desperate hope. "Begin," ordered Vextal. Kim stepped forward. On the display, she highlighted movement patterns that seemed random to alien eyes, but formed a clear picture to the humans. "They're using our valleys and mountains exactly as Earth armies did," she explained. "See how they never engage on open ground. They're compensating for inferior numbers and firepower with superior positioning." Park showed communication intercepts. "Their signal pattern matches Earth resistance networks precisely. But that means I know exactly how to disrupt it using just standard equipment with modifications." Lee displayed cultural analysis of intercepted messages. "Their leadership coalition is fragile. Three species with historical grievances, united only by opposition to alliance policies. With the right messaging, we can drive wedges between them. As they spoke, the skepticism in the room slowly gave way to consideration. The humans weren't just offering theories, they were presenting a comprehensive counter-strategy based on their unique perspective. When they finished, Commander Vextel's skin had shifted to a thoughtful green shade. 15 minutes are up, he said. And I find myself intrigued. You believe you can counter these tactics? Kim nodded. Not just counter, sir. We can end this conflict quickly if you're willing to try something completely different from standard alliance doctrine. How different? Asked Vextel. The three humans shared a look before Kim answered. Different enough that it might seem crazy to you, she said, but familiar enough to us that we're certain it will work. The tactical center aboard the Intrepid buzzed with tension as the human cadets detailed their plan. Officers of various species gathered around, some leaning forward with interest, others standing back with arms crossed or tentacles twitching in doubt. Senior Tactician Glix, a veteran of 17 major conflicts, could remain silent no longer. His translucent skin flushed orange with agitation as he stepped forward. This violates 17 standard military protocols, he protested, his voice amplified by the small breathing apparatus he wore. The Galactic Military Code specifically forbids false fleet signatures, communication interruption without prior declaration, and psychological warfare tactics against coalition forces. Cadet Kim faced the alien tactician without flinching. Though she stood a full head shorter than Glix, there was something in her steady gaze that made several officers shift uncomfortably. With respect, sir, that's exactly why it will work, Kim said firmly. The Separatists are counting on your adherence to those protocols. They've studied how Alliance forces fight, and they're exploiting your predictability. Glix's skin darkened further. You suggest we abandon centuries of refined military doctrine on the word off. On the word of cadets from a world where fighting dirty isn't just an option. It's survival, finished Commander Vextel, surprising everyone. His four arms were now crossed in a posture of careful consideration rather than dismissal. Kim nodded and returned to the tactical display. Our plan has three parts, working together. She highlighted a sector of space near the colony's outer moon. First, a tactical feint. We create false sensor signatures suggesting a major fleet deployment here, drawing their attention and forces. Park stepped forward next, holding up what appeared to be a standard communications module that had been visibly modified with additional components. While they're distracted, we deploy these, he explained, turning the device to show its internal modifications. I've reconfigured standard equipment to broadcast on specific frequencies that will disrupt their coordination. Their ships use a communication system that jumps between frequencies in a pattern identical to Earth resistance networks. I know exactly how to jam it. This would blind our own forces as well, objected a communications officer. No, Park shook his head. That's the beauty of it. I've programmed exclusion bands that our systems use. Only their networks will be affected. Lee moved to the cultural data screens, and when they're confused and isolated, I broadcast these messages. The screen displayed carefully crafted communications in 3 different languages. Each message is tailored to exploit existing tensions within their coalition, Lee explained. To the Vrax forces, we suggest the Pelnami are planning to claim all captured resources. To the Pelnami, we hint that the Drac leadership intends to install their own governors once the colony is taken. And to the Drac ships, we imply the others are using them as expendable frontline forces. Psychological warfare, murmured an officer. Dishonorable. Effective, corrected Lee. And bloodless. We're not falsifying information. We're just selectively emphasizing existing suspicions. Commander Vextel moved to the main display, studying the plan from all angles. His skin had taken on a mixture of thoughtful blue and cautious yellow. The risk is considerable, he noted. If the feint is detected too early, it won't be, Kim assured him. We'll use minimal actual ships, mostly sensor ghosts. The Separatists are already stretched thin trying to maintain their scattered positions. And if they don't respond to the divisive messaging? Asked another officer. Lee smiled slightly. They will. I've analyzed over 300 intercepted communications between their forces. The coalition is already fracturing under pressure. Our messages will just crack it along existing fault lines. The room fell silent as everyone considered the plan. It was bold, unorthodox, and completely contrary to Alliance military doctrine. Yet 3 days of conventional approaches had only resulted in mounting casualties and frustration. The Academy Commandant stepped forward. Commander, I recommend we give the cadets' plan serious consideration. The alternative is continuing as we have been, with predictable results. Vextal's skin rippled through several color patterns as he deliberated. Finally, it settled on a determined green. Senior Tactician Glix, he said, prepare a contingency response force in case this plan fails. Glix blinked his large eyes rapidly. You're actually authorizing this. This is highly irregular, the commander acknowledged. But conventional approaches have failed. They have authorization, but only because we've exhausted all standard options. The pronouncement sent a wave of murmurs through the tactical center. Officers hurried to their stations, some excited, others clearly doubtful. The 3 human cadets huddled together, checking details of their plan. They had convinced the commander, but now they had to deliver results. Can you really modify enough scramblers in time? Kim asked Park quietly. He nodded. I'll need help from the engineering section. But the design is simple. The trick is the frequency algorithm, not the hardware. And your messages? Kim turned to Lee. Are you sure they'll be effective? Positive, Lee replied. I studied their cultural markers extensively. Their alliance is already strained. This will push them past breaking point. Commander Vextal approached the humans. How long to implement this plan of yours? The cadets exchanged determined glances. We'll need 15 minutes, said Cadet Kim. 15 minutes to prepare. Vextal asked, his skin showing disbelief. That's not possible. No, sir, Kim clarified. 15 minutes to end the war. This bold claim silenced the tactical center. Even those who had begun to believe in the plan looked skeptical at this timeline. Explain, demanded Vextal. Once all 3 elements are in place, the effect will be immediate and overwhelming, Kim said. The Separatists' advantage lies in coordination and morale. Take those away, and their formation collapses. 15 minutes, Vextal repeated. If you're wrong. We're not, Kim said simply. The commander studied the 3 humans carefully. There was something in their confidence that couldn't be dismissed as mere youthful arrogance. These were Deathworlders, evolved on a planet that constantly tried to kill them. Perhaps that explained their ability to think differently, to see opportunities where others saw only obstacles. Very well, he decided. You have operational control for the next 15 minutes. Make them count. The tactical center erupted into activity as officers rushed to implement the human cadets' plan. Engineers were summoned to mass-produce Park's modified scramblers. Communication specialists worked with Lee to prepare the targeted messages, and Kim coordinated with navigation to position ships for the tactical feint. As the preparations neared completion, the Academy Commandant approached his human cadets. Whatever happens next, he said quietly, you've already changed how the Alliance will approach warfare. I hope you realize that. Kim nodded solemnly. We do, sir. That's why we have to succeed. The first rule of Earth military history, added Park, adapt or die. And the second rule, Lee finished, know your enemy better than they know themselves. The countdown began as the 3 components of Operation Thunderclap moved into position. Throughout the Intrepid, officers and cadets held their breath, wondering if 3 humans from a distant death world could really accomplish what the combined might of the Alliance fleet had failed to do. In just 15 minutes, they would have their answer. A large digital countdown appeared on the main screen of the Operations Center. 15 o'clock. Every eye in the room focused on those glowing numbers. For 3 days, the best military minds in the Alliance have failed to gain any advantage against the Separatists. Now 3 human cadets claimed they could end the conflict in just 15 minutes. "Begin Operation Thunderclap," Commander Vextal ordered, his skin a mixture of skeptical purple and hopeful blue. At 14:30 on the countdown, Cadet Kim activated her tactical feint. She had programmed sensor ghosts and repositioned a small group of actual vessels to create the illusion of a major fleet deployment near the colony's outer moon. "Separatist long-range sensors are detecting our Phantom fleet," reported a monitoring officer. "They're sending alert signals to all their positions." On the tactical display, red dots representing enemy ships began to move, just as Kim had predicted. The Separatists were pulling forces from various positions to counter the perceived major threat. "They're taking the bait," Kim said, her eyes never leaving the display. "Look at these junction points. They're leaving them exposed." At 13:05, Separatist communication chatter increased dramatically. Their commanders were trying to coordinate a response to the Phantom fleet. "They're confused," Lee noted, monitoring the intercepted communications. "Their command structure is trying to make sense of our movements. They don't match any standard Alliance approach." Commander Vextal watched with growing interest. His skin had shifted primarily to an attentive blue. At 10:45, Cadet Park gave the signal. Throughout the battle zone, Alliance support vessels activated the modified communication scramblers he had designed. The small devices began broadcasting precisely calculated interference patterns. The effect was immediate and dramatic. On the tactical display, Separatist formations that had been moving with purpose suddenly showed signs of confusion. Ships veered off course. Some stopped completely. Others began moving in circles. "Their coordination is breaking down," Park explained. "Each ship can still operate independently, but they can't talk to each other or receive orders from their command." "Impossible," muttered Commander Vextal as the enemy fleet indicators began blinking erratically on the tactical display. His skin rippled with astonishment. "Not impossible," Park replied. "Just Earth thinking. We're using their own communication protocol against them." At 9:18, the first Separatist ships began firing on their own allies, unable to properly identify friend from foe without clear communications. "Casualty reports from Separatist forces are spiking," reported an analysis officer. "But it's from friendly fire, not our attacks." The tactical center hummed with growing excitement as officers realized the humans' plan was working. What had seemed like a desperate gamble was unfolding with precision. At 6:12, Cadet Lee nodded to the communications team. "Begin broadcast phase." The carefully crafted messages began transmitting on frequencies that the scramblers deliberately left open. Each message was tailored to exploit existing tensions within the Separatist coalition. To Vrak's ships, "Pelnani command vessels are retreating with captured resources while you take heavy losses. Sensor data confirms." To Pelnani forces, "Drak leadership has been intercepted planning to install their own governors on Luma. Your people will be excluded from the new power structure." To Drak units, analysis of casualty reports shows Drak ships being positioned as shields for Vraks and Pelnemi vessels. Your deaths are being used as strategic advantage by your allies. Lee monitored the response. "They're receiving our messages. The few communication channels still open to them are now filled with accusations and demands for explanation." At 5:44, the first real break in the Separatist coalition appeared. A group of Pelnami ships suddenly changed course, breaking formation with their Drak allies. "They're withdrawing from the combat zone," reported a sensor officer, wonder in her voice. At 4:27, Vrak's forces began firing on Pelnami ships, apparently believing the messages about resource theft. "Their coalition is fracturing exactly as predicted," Lee said, allowing himself a small smile. "Cultural fault lines that were always there, just waiting for pressure." The operations center was now filled with officers watching in amazement. The same separatist force that had frustrated the Alliance for 3 days was tearing itself apart before their eyes. "Should we engage with our actual forces?" asked Senior Tactician Glix, who had been watching the operation with growing respect. Kim shook her head. "Not yet. Let them continue breaking apart. If we attack now, it might reunite them against a common enemy." At 2:50, DRAC commanders began broadcasting general surrender offers, requesting safe passage in exchange for information about the other separatist forces. "They're turning on each other completely," murmured the Academy commandant. At 1:22, Alliance sensors detected power fluctuations throughout the separatist fleet. Ships were diverting energy from weapons to shields, a clear defensive posture. "They're not fighting anymore," Park observed. "They're just trying to protect themselves, from each other and from us." The commander's skin had now turned a bright, impressed green. "In all my years of service, I've never seen anything like this." At 0:37, the first separatist ships began powering down weapons systems completely, the ultimate sign of surrender in space combat. "Incoming transmission from the lead Vrax vessel," announced the communications officer. "They're requesting terms of surrender." The room fell so quiet that the soft beeping of the countdown seemed loud. At 08, the first formal surrender transmission arrived. "This is Captain Threll of the Separatist Coalition Command. We submit to Alliance authority and request immediate cessation of hostilities. Our coalition has dissolved. We await your terms." When the clock hit 00:00 exactly, the operations center erupted in stunned silence, followed by cautious celebration. Officers looked at each other, barely believing what they had witnessed. 3 days of conventional warfare had accomplished nothing. 15 minutes of human strategy had ended the conflict. Commander Vextal approached the 3 cadets, his skin now a bright, respectful gold. "How?" he asked simply. "How did you know this would work?" Kim, Park, and Lee exchanged glances before Kim answered. "Earth history is full of conflicts like this," she explained. "When you grow up on a death world, you learn that direct force isn't always the answer. Sometimes the smartest way to win is to make your enemy defeat themselves." "We studied their communication patterns," added Park. "Their technology, found the weaknesses, and we understood their cultural divisions," finished Lee. "In any coalition, there are always cracks. We just widen them." Commander Vextal stared at the 3 humans with new understanding, perhaps even a hint of concern. "The Academy was right to bring humans into our ranks," he said finally, "though I suspect the galaxy may never be quite the same." Around them, Alliance officers continued celebrating as reports confirmed the Separatist surrender across all sectors. The 3-day war had ended in just 15 minutes, thanks to 3 cadets from a distant death world called Earth. News of Operation Thunderclap spread quickly through the Alliance. What began as a classified military report soon became the subject of excited whispers across 1,000 worlds. 3 human cadets had ended a war in 15 minutes using methods that broke almost every rule in standard military doctrine. 2 weeks after the Luma conflict ended, the High Council of the Galactic Alliance called an emergency meeting. Representatives from 87 species gathered in the Great Chamber on Central World. The mood was tense as the Academy Commandant stood to address the assembly. "Honored representatives," he began, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "You have all read the reports from Luma Colony. I am here to confirm they are accurate in every detail. 3 cadets from Earth developed and executed a strategy that accomplished in 15 minutes what our conventional forces could not achieve in 3 days. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A tall, insectoid representative rose. "This is deeply concerning." She clicked through her translator. "These humans employed deception, communication warfare, and psychological manipulation. Such tactics violate our most basic military principles." Indeed, the commandant agreed. And yet they worked perfectly, with minimal casualties on either side. "How do we explain this?" asked another counselor, his blue scales shimmering with agitation. The commandant displayed an image of Earth on the main screen. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown landmasses. They think differently because they evolved differently, explained the commandant. Their homeworld forced them to adapt constantly, to improvise, to survive against overwhelming odds. Earth has extreme temperature variations, natural disasters, high gravity, and thousands of predatory species. Humans never had the luxury of fighting according to rules. They fought to survive. The chamber fell silent as representatives contemplated this explanation. Are they dangerous to us? Someone finally asked. The commandant considered his answer carefully. They are different. Different can be dangerous, yes, but different can also be invaluable. I believe the Alliance faces a choice: fear human thinking or learn from it. On the Intrepid, meanwhile, the three cadets found themselves suddenly famous. Commander Vextol personally awarded them field commissions, promoting them from cadets to officers despite their youth and limited formal training. Lieutenant Kim, he said as he placed the insignia on her uniform. Lieutenant Park, Lieutenant Lee, your service to the Alliance has been extraordinary. The ceremony should have been a joyous occasion, but the three humans noticed the complex reactions from their alien colleagues. Some approached with genuine admiration, eager to understand their thinking. Others kept a noticeable distance, their body language suggesting wariness or even fear. They look at us differently now, Lee observed as they sat together in the officers' mess later that day. Kim nodded. We showed them something they weren't ready to see. How to think like humans, Park added, for better or worse. In the weeks that followed, Alliance Military Command conducted extensive debriefings with the three officers. Every aspect of Operation Thunderclap was analyzed and documented. The humans explained their thought processes in detail, often surprising senior officers with the simplicity of their approach. You mean you learned these tactics from historical conflicts, not specialized military training? Asked one general. Earth history is military training, Kim explained. Our planet has never known true peace. Even our games teach strategic thinking. 3 months after Luma, rumors began circulating about separatist groups in other sectors adopting Earth tactics. Alliance commanders found themselves facing opponents who no longer played by the established rules of engagement. We have created a problem, admitted Commander Vextol during a high-level strategy meeting. Now everyone wants to fight like humans. Then we need more humans teaching our forces how to counter these tactics, suggested the Academy Commandant. 6 months after the 15-minute war, the Galactic Military Academy established a new curriculum. The official name was Adaptive Warfare Strategies, but cadets simply called it Human Thinking. The 3 lieutenants were recalled from active duty to serve as the program's lead instructors. On their first day, Lieutenant Kim faced a classroom of alien cadets, many of whom seemed nervous in her presence. Welcome to Adaptive Warfare, she began. I know what you've heard about us and about Operation Thunderclap. Today we begin teaching you not just what we did, but how we think. Why would you share such knowledge? Asked a skeptical cadet. It gives your species an advantage. Kim smiled. Because humanity doesn't want to fight the Alliance. We want to be part of it. And that means sharing our strengths, just as we learned from yours. The new program quickly became the most requested specialization at the Academy. Soon, other humans from Earth were recruited as both students and instructors. What had begun with 3 cadets was becoming a true integration of human military thinking into Alliance doctrine. 1 year after Luma, the Academy made an unprecedented announcement. For the first time, alien cadets would travel to Earth for special training. The harsh conditions of the Death World would serve as both challenge and classroom. The Academy Commandant personally supervised the selection of candidates for this elite program. Only the most promising cadets from each species were chosen, those who showed the greatest potential for human-adjacent thinking, as the evaluation criteria described it. On the day of departure, a shuttle filled with 20 alien cadets left the Academy station, bound for Earth. As they approached the blue planet, many pressed against the viewports, gazing with a mixture of fear and fascination at the world that had produced such formidable strategists. A young Vexillian cadet, whose parent had served on the Intrepid during Operation Thunderclap, turned to their instructor with wide eyes. "Do you think we can learn to think like them?" the cadet asked, watching as Earth grew larger in the viewport. The instructor, who had witnessed those fateful 15 minutes a year earlier, felt a complex emotion that mixed respect with caution. His skin shifted through several thoughtful colors before settling on a determined gold. "That's what terrifies and inspires us all," he replied simply. As the shuttle began its descent through Earth's atmosphere, the cadets felt the increased gravity pressing them into their seats. Outside, storm clouds flashed with lightning. In the distance, mountains rose sharp against the horizon. This was the death world that had shaped humanity, the crucible that forged minds capable of ending a war in 15 minutes. The galaxy would never be the same. The end